So, this is a topic that's been discussed since the Nintendo Switch was first announced. From the moment that first trailer aired, people wanted to know what the retro offerings would be on this hybrid. Are we getting a virtual console? But with Nintendo offering select NES and SNES titles to be playable through Nintendo Online, the virtual console idea seemed to kind of be dead for a while, with Nintendo even making official statements saying it wasn't in their plans. But with the recent announcement of the Mario 3D All-Stars collection bringing 3 classic Mario games from the N64, GameCube, and Wii eras over to the Switch, conversations have sparked again on whether or not we're set to see more games from these eras being offered and how Nintendo may go about doing so. Right off the bat, I want to say, I think Nintendo absolutely has to start looking at games from these eras to bring over to the Switch. Because here's the thing, Nintendo is currently making bank off their back catalog by porting Wii U games over to the Switch right now. The Wii U games have been a huge help in terms of padding out the amount of releases throughout the year, as they're not hard to do. And they're able to get away with usually charging the same price as brand new games made specifically for Switch. So Nintendo, I'm sure, loves all this right now. But the issue is, we're getting pretty close already to running out of big Wii U releases to port. I mean, Pikmin 3 and Mario 3D World are confirmed on the way now, so it's like, what's even left at this point? Xenoblade Chronicles X is still the big one for me, but beyond that, it's like, I don't know, Woolly World, the Zelda remasters. Regardless, that well is running dry. So I feel like they need to focus that attention, that work that currently goes into porting Wii U games to the Switch, somewhere else, and soon. And I think just going another step back, maybe a few more steps back, would be a fantastic route. I mean, especially with GameCube and most definitely Wii games, like I think is demonstrated with the Mario 3D Anniversary Collection, they don't need a whole lot of work to get them looking solid on the Switch. I said I think Galaxy looks fantastic with just the simple resolution bump, and Sunshine I think looks great as well. I think you'd be in a similar situation for a lot of games on those systems. Also, looking at the 3D All-Stars collection, there is this issue with the limited time nature of the game. As many have pointed out, it's not uncommon for these types of collections to get a limited release in their physical form, but to have the digital versions also be time limited, when obviously you could just sell infinite digital versions with no issue, it is quite odd. I said in my original video on the subject, I don't feel there's any way these games are just going to go away forever on March 31st. I fully believe they have some plan to release those games in another way, possibly even around that time. Now, that could be via Nintendo Online, but in my opinion, in terms of N64, GameCube, and Wii games coming to the online service, I don't see that happening at all, with the way pricing is now. I mean, this collection of 3 titles is $60. If they put these on the online service, that's like 3 years of subscription for people right there. Considering this is Nintendo, the company that upcharged us on Tropical Freeze. The game was $50 when it came out on the Wii U, and it gets ported to the Switch, and it's like, oh, $60 now. I don't see them giving us a bunch of great deals on these games. So if they were going to bring these other systems to Nintendo Online, I think they'd either greatly raise the price, which again, I don't see happening. People would freak. They already freak out now having to pay $20 a year for online. So I mean, if they bump that up to like 60 or even more, oh my god. People would not be happy. Or they'd have to offer like different tiers so you could sub to like the basic access, 64 access, GameCube access, etc. That would at least give people the option as to whether or not they wanted to pay for access to these libraries, but I still feel like they wouldn't be getting the full value that they could out of these games. And once more, since we're talking about Nintendo, I think they're going to try and milk these things for every dime they're worth. And in that regard, if they do release these games individually, they each could just end up being thrown up on the eShop. But like I said, I feel as though they almost have to start looking at putting more games from these systems on the Switch. And while a strategy like this would probably work for some franchises like Zelda, you know, having a big fancy collection then breaking them up for release on the eShop, it wouldn't work for most games. So if you put a bunch more games from these systems up, I think you're going to want to have a designated place for these retro releases to give them a better spotlight like a virtual console. So I see this as being very likely at this point, but I think there are two big concerns from the consumer standpoint with it. Number one, of course, price. Sure, Nintendo is going to want to charge a premium for these games, but how much should people really be expected to pay for games that are this old? Some came out over 2 decades ago. If you ask the hardcore Nintendo fanboys, they'd probably tell you, oh, they should all be $60 each. That'd be fair. They'd be screaming at you if you questioned it, like, how dare you not be grateful that Nintendo's allowing you to pay $60 for Donkey Kong 64? For myself, my perfect price would be $10 for the N64 games, $15 for GameCube, and $20 for Wii. I think that'd work out really well. However, if you add all those numbers up, you get $45, where the 3D All-Stars collection is going to go for $60, and that has one game from each of these eras. So if we had to do it that way, where you end up with that total, I'd break it down as still $10 for N64, but then $20 for GameCube and $30 for Wii. I could see them going that direction in terms of pricing if they wanted to charge more of a premium, and I think they'd get away with those numbers, even for me, while that'd be higher than I'd like to pay. With the Switch allowing us to play these games both portably and on the TV, I could justify price points like that. This is going to be an aspect I really want to hear your guys' opinions on. What sorts of price ranges would you like to see for these games if we do end up getting a virtual console type situation? But also, given the age we're in with digital games, I think there's another concern on many people's minds. We're tired of buying these games over and over again. Many of the games that would likely come to the VC, you may have already bought on both the Wii and the Wii U. With what we're seeing on other platforms in terms of backwards and forwards compatibility, many games even getting upgraded for next-gen hardware free of charge, if Nintendo does this, I think they should at least discuss plans for making virtual console purchases more permanent. Whether it be saying like the games you buy on here will be carried over to any and all Switch successors, like if there's a Switch 2 or something, you ensure consumers that you're not going to make them buy the games all over again. Or even say there's going to be some sort of transfer service where it costs like $1 per game to bring them over to next-gen hardware. But I think they should make these plans up front and clear. Yes, with how terrible Nintendo is with doing these things, I know this is kind of a big ask. If Nintendo does yet another virtual console, I don't think they're going to get away with making people buy the same ports again and again without a lot of pushback. I mean, when I'm able to just throw Xbox 360, even original Xbox discs right into my Xbox One and play them oftentimes with improvements to the resolution and frame rate, all for free right now, you gotta give me something, Nintendo. Not to mention all the shenanigans with them shutting down the Wii Shop channel. I think Nintendo has to be a bit more consumer friendly if they decide to go this route. At least if they want players to do some serious investing into a digital retro Nintendo library. And once more, with the Switch being a home console handheld hybrid, if they handle this right, I think there's a stupid amount of money to be made off a Switch virtual console. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on a potential return of the virtual console in the comments. Do you think we may be getting it back in some form? What would you want to see the prices of the games look like? And would you need to know about any future-proofing plans before you started investing in another digital retro Nintendo library? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion on a potential virtual console return. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter, @JohnnyZakari, and join my Discord, ChiGuy and Friends, link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.